This is our third week of class, and this week we'll be talking about several different topics. We'll start off by reviewing indefinite articles and classroom objects and questions. Then we'll go on to learn some new material, specifically subject pronouns, the irregular verb être, and some information about adjectives. Just to review, remember that all nouns in French must be preceded by an article. Last week we learned about one type of article, the article indéfini. Now remember first of all that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. And an article is a short little word that comes before the noun. In English, the indefinite articles are a, or an, or one, or some. The indefinite articles in French are un, which we use before an object that is both masculine and singular, une, that's used before an object that's both feminine and singular, and des, for plural objects. Remember we said last week that nouns in French have gender. All nouns are either masculine or feminine, and the only way to learn these is to memorize them. Some examples. Il y a un livre sur la table. Because the word livre is masculine, I need to use the indefinite article un to talk about a book on the table. C'est une feuille de papier. It's a piece of paper. Because feuille is feminine, I need to use the feminine form of the article. Il y a des étudiants dans la salle de classe. There are some students in the classroom. Students is plural. Because of that, I need to use the plural article. I can't say in English, there are us students in the classroom any more than I can in French. The next thing we talked about last week was questions about things in the classroom. For example, qu'est-ce que c'est? Qui est-ce? Est-ce que c'est un or une? Or est-ce que ce sont des? We use these to ask about people and things. For example, qu'est-ce que c'est? C'est un bureau. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Ce sont des chaises. Qui est-ce? C'est le président américain. Est-ce que c'est Hermione Granger? Non, c'est Harry Potter. Est-ce que c'est un stylo? Non, c'est un livre. If you have questions about any of those things, before you go on to the new information that we're about to start, stop and listen again to the first part of the video. In the new information, we're going to start with subject pronouns. First of all, qu'est-ce qu'un pronom? What's a pronoun? Quite simply, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. Remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. So, if I'm talking about the professor in the class, for example, the professor's the noun. I might say, the professor runs an interesting class. The professor talks a lot. The professor is very funny. The professor is very tall. And after a while, I might get sick of talking about the professor. So, I might use a pronoun to take the place of that noun, and I might say she. She is very tall. She talks a lot. So the next question, qu'est-ce qu'un sujet? What's a subject? Well, it's very simple. The subject is the noun in the sentence that acts upon the verb. In my example about the professor, I said the professor talks a lot. The professor is a noun, but it's not a pronoun. It is a subject because the professor is acting upon the verb. The professor is doing the talking. If I use a pronoun to replace the professor and I say she, the pronoun, still acts upon the verb. She talks a lot. She is still doing the talking. Hopefully that makes sense. What we're going to learn today are subject pronouns, words that take the place of a noun and act as the subject of the verb. They act upon the verb. In French, les pronoms sujets are divided into two columns, singular on the left and plural on the right. We always keep the list in this order. The singular pronoun for I is je or J apostrophe. The J apostrophe is used when the word following the je starts with a vowel. For you, the informal, you already know, tu, he, il, she, elle, one, on. Now this one is not one a number, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is one as in we or people. For example, one eats pasta at an Italian restaurant. We could also say people eat pasta at an Italian restaurant. On the plural column, there are just 4. The first is nous. Nous is the plural of je. It means we. If this je is singular, I talk a lot. When we're in a group, when I'm in the group, it's going to be we talk a lot. Vous, you already know. It's the singular form of you when that you is formal. And it also, if you remember back to week 1, functions as a plural form for you, as in you guys or y'all. The singular of this pronoun il stands for he. The plural, il, you don't pronounce the S, is they. That is a masculine group or a group that's mixed with men and women. The singular elle means she. The plural elle with the S means they. And that's for a plural feminine group. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'un verbe? What's a verb? A verb is the action word in the sentence. All verbs have to have a subject or a subject pronoun because verbs can't just do things by themselves, right? I can't say talks a lot or runs quickly or eats slowly. I have to say she talks a lot. The professor runs quickly. He eats slowly. Let's learn our first verb, the verb être. The verb être is really an essential verb. We're going to recognize here all of the subject pronouns that we just talked about. Je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, and elle. The word afterward is the verb être. This form of it we call the infinitive. The infinitive is what we call the verb before we conjugate it, before we do anything to it. The rest of everything in this chart is the conjugation of the verb être. So let's go through it and let me explain. Je suis means I am. Tu es means you are. Il est and elle est and on est, you'll see are all the same word. He is, she is, one is. Nous sommes, we are. Vous êtes, you or you guys are. Ils sont, they are, masculine. Elles sont, they are, feminine. Just like in English, you can't say I is. In French, you can't say je somme. You have to say je suis. because if you change it around, you would be making a mistake, sort of like saying I is. Now, this is a verb. Look at this. Je suis un étudiant à BSU. I am a student at BSU. Oprah Winfrey, elle est riche. Oprah Winfrey, she is rich. Nous sommes contents dans la classe de français. We are happy in French class. Let's look next at adjectives. First of all, qu'est-ce qu'un adjectif? Well, an adjective is a word that describes a noun. An adjective describes a person, place, a thing, or an idea. It tells about it. For example, blue, big, rich, happy, sad, extreme, good, or etc. We can talk about our blue turf, which describes the turf on the field and differentiates it from everybody else's boring green. Remember, because nouns in French have gender, they're either masculine or feminine, and they always have number, either singular or plural, an adjective in French must agree in number and in gender with the noun they modify, which in plain English means that a masculine noun gets the masculine form of the adjective, a feminine noun gets the feminine spelling of the adjective, and a plural noun takes the plural and either a masculine or feminine spelling. Most adjectives in French come after the noun. There are a few kinds that come before, but we'll talk about those later. So, for example, c'est une chemise bleue. You know from your vocabulary that this is a shirt. We also know from the vocabulary that it's feminine. If I want to talk about the blue shirt, I put the word blue after the noun it's describing. In this case, the shirt. Because the shirt is feminine, I also need to use the feminine spelling of the word blue. More examples. C'est un livre intéressant. Livre is masculine and singular. Therefore, intéressant is also masculine and singular. C'est une femme intéressante. Because femme is feminine and singular, intéressante must be feminine and singular as well. Ce sont des livres intéressants. Livre now is plural. And look at all the things I've had to change. I had to change the verb. They are interesting books, or these are interesting books. Some instead of a books. I had to make this change to make it books from book. And I had to make this change to make it masculine and plural, to match up with books. The last example, ce sont des femmes intéressantes. This is the same as my singular sentence, but now it's in the plural. And again, I've had to change the verb, the article, the spelling of the noun, and the spelling of the adjective. Il y a quelques adjectifs irréguliers. There are a few irregular adjectives. Most adjectives, go back one, most adjectives on the masculine singular form, we kind of just leave it alone. You don't need to change it in terms of the spelling. For the feminine singular, most often we just add an E. For the masculine plural, most often we just add an S. Whoops, down here. And for the feminine plural, most often we just add an ES. The adjectives in this chart are a little bit different. There are some spelling changes for a few adjectives that are listed in our book. These are the ones that you should learn for now. Blanc changes to blanche. Vieux changes to vieille. Beau in the masculine changes to belle in the feminine. And gentil in the masculine changes to gentille in the feminine. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, Skype me, call me, or come by my office. Otherwise, this ends our presentation, and I'll see you in our lab.